I never told my son the truth about my life. To James, I was just an old man nearing retirement, living quietly in the countryside, driving a rusted pickup truck, wearing the same flannel shirts year after year. He believed I scraped by on a modest income, maybe a pension, maybe a little savings. I let him believe that, on purpose. What he didn't know was that I owned a logistics and waste management empire that generated over $60,000 a month. I owned facilities in 5 states. I signed contracts most people couldn't pronounce. I had spent 40 years building something real, slowly, silently, without ever needing applause. And that silence became my greatest weapon. When James invited me to dinner to meet his fiancée's parents, the Hawthorns, he warned me gently, "Dad, they're different, very successful. Please just try not to embarrass me." I smiled and told him not to worry. That night, I wore my oldest flannel jacket. I drove my 2005 Ford F-150, the one with rust along the wheel wells and a dent from a construction site accident 15 years ago. I wanted to see them clearly. I wanted to know exactly who my son was marrying into. The restaurant was one of the most expensive in the city. Crystal chandeliers, 5-star service, soft jazz floating in the air. The kind of place where money speaks before people do. Richard Hawthorne noticed my truck before he noticed me. The look on his face told me everything. Inside, he barely acknowledged my presence. He spoke around me, not to me, boasting about real estate deals, name-dropping senators, snapping his fingers at waiters like they were animals trained to respond to sound. Then came the moment. Richard looked at the half-eaten prime rib on his plate, smirked, and snapped at the waiter. "Pack this up for Mr. Archer," he said loudly. "The poor man's been eyeing it all night. Probably the best meal he'll see this year." The room went quiet. People looked. My son turned red with shame and stared at the table. I simply smiled and accepted the bag. What Richard didn't know was that my company supplied logistics for the distributor that delivered that very steak. I could have shut him down right there. I didn't, because I wanted to see how far he would go. The wedding conversation. After dessert, Cynthia Hawthorne leaned forward with a sharp smile. "We should discuss the wedding," she said. "It will be held at the plaza. 300 guests. Senators, developers, elite families. The budget is around $150,000. She paused. "We assume you'll contribute your share." I reached into my jacket and placed a wrinkled white envelope on the table. $500, I said quietly. Cash. I sold my lawnmower. The silence was brutal. Richard laughed. "That wouldn't even cover napkins." He tossed the envelope back at me. "Since you're contributing nothing, you'll have no say. We'll seat you somewhere discreet. Table 45, near the service entrance." Then he looked at James. My son said nothing. That was the moment something inside me cracked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just watched my son choose comfort over dignity. And I knew then, if he couldn't defend himself or his father, he wasn't ready for the truth. The mask comes off. Over the next week, the Hawthorns escalated. They pressured James into buying a mansion in Oak Creek, $1.8 million. Far beyond his means. Vanessa cried. Richard pushed. Cynthia guilted. When I inspected the house, I saw everything. Fake marble, hollow floors, foundation cracks hidden under paint. Then Richard crossed a line. He suggested I sell my home to help with the down payment. After that, he added casually, you could live in the basement, be the groundskeeper. Earn your keep. My son stood frozen. I looked Richard in the eyes. No. That word shook him more than shouting ever could. 2 days later, Vanessa came to my house. She called me selfish. Then she threatened me. If you don't help us, she said coldly, you will never see your grandchildren. Ever. That night, I opened the file my CFO had prepared. Richard Hawthorne was drowning in debt. The Bentley, rented and reported stolen. Oak Creek, in foreclosure. 5 million in unpaid loans, tax liens, lawsuits, desperation. He wasn't wealthy, he was pretending, and he was trying to use my son as a financial sacrifice. Letting the trap close. James called me, panicked. They want me to sign by Friday. I told him something that broke his heart. Then sign. He stared at me like I'd betrayed him. What he didn't know was the law. 3-day attorney review.